My family laughed at me during Grandma's memorial service, until the lawyer announced I inherited everything and they got nothing. Your support fuels us every day. Please subscribe and tell us in the comments which part of the world you're watching from. We love connecting with you. They were laughing. At Grandma's memorial service, my own family was laughing at me. I stood there in my second-hand black dress, the only one I could afford, holding the worn photo album Grandma loved, and my cousin Tiana leaned over to my Aunt Rochelle. Girl, look at Kenya's dusty shoes. Couldn't even dress proper for Nana Rose. The church felt smaller than it was. 200 people packed into Greater Hope Baptist, but I only heard their whispers cutting through Pastor William's eulogy. My Uncle Marcus sat in the front row, designer suit gleaming, checking his Rolex every 5 minutes. Beside him, my mother Diane dabbed fake tears with a handkerchief that probably cost more than my rent. I was 26, working double shifts at Mercy Hospital as a nurse's aide while taking night classes. Grandma Rose was the only one who believed in me. Every Sunday at her house on Oakwood Drive, she'd make her famous peach cobbler and tell me, "Baby girl, you got something special. Don't let them dim your light. At least Nana can rest without Kenya begging for money anymore." My brother Darius muttered loud enough for the entire third row to hear. Laughter rippled through my relatives like a cruel wave. My hands trembled around the album. Inside were photos Grandma kept. Me at 6, gap-toothed and hopeful. Me at 16, defiant in my thrift store prom dress. Me last month, exhausted but smiling after my first semester dean's list. She'd written on the back of each one, "Pi Kenya. My fighter." The lawyer, Mr. Chin, sat quietly in the back corner. I'd noticed him earlier, clutching a leather briefcase, his expression unreadable. He caught my eye once and something flickered there. Was it pity? My family had always been divided into 2 categories, the successful ones and me. Tiana, 28, was a pharmaceutical sales rep driving a Mercedes her daddy Marcus bought her. She'd posted 17 Instagram stories from the funeral, each one with performative grief and designer sunglasses. R.I.P. Nana Rose #family first #legacy living. Darius, my older brother by 3 years, managed a car dealership. He'd barely visited Grandma in her final 2 years, but today he wore her favorite brooch pinned to his lapel like a trophy. When I pointed it out, he shrugged. She would have wanted me to have something special. Mom sat between them, the matriarch of materialism. After Dad left when I was 7, she'd remarried Richard, a real estate investor who treated her like a prize and me like a stain. They lived in a gated community in Buckhead, while I rented a studio in East Atlanta with roaches and a radiator that banged like gunshots. Kenya always was the odd one, Aunt Rochelle told Mrs. Patterson from Grandma's Bridge Club. Rose tried to help her, but some people just can't be helped. Too proud to accept charity, but not too proud to show up in those shoes. I glanced down. The shoes were scuffed, yeah, but clean. I'd polished them last night for an hour, sitting on my apartment floor, crying so hard my tears spotted the leather. The truth? I'd asked Mom for help once, 2 years ago when my car died and I needed $800 to fix it so I could get to work and school. She'd laughed. Maybe if you'd made better choices, Kenya. We all have to live with consequences. I'd walked 3 miles to work every day for 4 months until I saved enough. Grandma found out and gave me her old Civic. "It ain't pretty, but it runs," she'd said. That car was now my lifeline. Grandma Rose Washington wasn't just loved, she was legendary. Born in 1943 in Birmingham, she'd survived Jim Crow, marched with Dr. King, and built a catering business from nothing but grit and her mama's recipes. By the time I was born, Rose's Kitchen was an Atlanta institution. She'd sold it 5 years ago for $2.3 million, a fact my family never let her forget. "Mama, You living in that little house when you could buy something nice, Marcus would say every holiday, his eyes calculating. Let me help you invest that money properly. Grandma would smile, that knowing smile that crinkled her eyes. My money's already invested, baby. In things that matter. I'd spent every Wednesday evening with her these past 3 years. While my family called on holidays and her birthday, I was there for the ordinary moments. Watching Jeopardy, helping her garden, listening to stories about Grandpa Samuel who died before I was born. They think I'm foolish, she told me 6 months ago, her hands shaking slightly as she watered her tomatoes. The cancer was already spreading, though she hadn't told anyone but me yet. Keeping money in accounts they can't touch, spending it on foolishness like charity and church. It's your money, Nana. That's right, baby girl. Mine to do with as I please. She'd looked at me hard then, her brown eyes still sharp despite the illness creeping through her bones. Kenya, you listening? When I'm gone, you remember, real family shows up on the regular days, not just the special ones. I'd held her hand, feeling how fragile she'd become, this woman who'd once intimidated city councilmen and business rivals. I'll remember. Promise me something else, she whispered. Don't let them break you. You're going to fly, baby girl. Higher than any of them. Mr. Lawrence's chin cleared his throat and the church basement fell silent. We'd moved downstairs after the service. 67 family members cramming into the fellowship hall where Grandma had taught Sunday school for 30 years. The scent of fried chicken and mac and cheese from the repast table mixed with expensive perfume and anticipation. Thank you all for gathering, Mr. Chin said, his voice carrying authority despite his slight frame. Rose Washington was my client for 15 years. She was also my friend. Her instructions were very specific about this reading. Marcus leaned forward, fingers already tapping on his phone, probably calculating his inheritance. Rochelle had her hand on Tiana's shoulder, both wearing matching expressions of greedy anticipation. Mom sat with Richard, her face carefully neutral, but I saw her grip tighten on her purse. I stood in the back near the kitchen door wanting to disappear. Whatever small thing Grandma left me, maybe her recipe box or that quilt on her bed, I'd treasure it. That's all I needed. Rose's estate, Mr. Chin continued, pulling out documents, includes her home at 847 Oakwood Drive, currently valued at $450,000. Investment accounts totaling $1.8 million. The contents of 3 safety deposit boxes. A life insurance policy worth $500,000. And the intellectual property rights to Rose's kitchen recipes and brand, valued at approximately $300,000. The room erupted. Marcus was already standing. Now Mama knew I'd manage. Please, Mr. Chen's voice cut sharp. Let me finish. The estate totals approximately $3.05 million. Rochelle clutched her chest dramatically. Tiana's eyes went wide. Darius grinned like he'd won the lottery. Mom's careful neutrality cracked into a smile. Mr. Chin looked directly at me. The entire estate goes to Kenya Simone Washington. The world stopped spinning. What? Marcus's voice shook the walls. The room exploded. Chairs scraped. Voices overlapped in a cacophony of disbelief and rage. Tiana's Instagram-perfect face twisted into something ugly. That's impossible. Nana wouldn't. There must be a mistake. Mom's voice cut through, sharp and cold. She'd stood up, her polished exterior cracking. Kenya? Kenya barely visited. She didn't help with medical bills or... I was there every Wednesday, I heard myself say, my voice small but growing. Every single Wednesday for 3 years. You manipulated her. Rochelle's finger jabbed toward me like a weapon. A dying old woman, and you wormed your way in, probably forged documents. Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Chen's voice carried steel now. I assure you Rose Washington was of completely sound mind. We revised this will 6 months ago. She was very clear about her intentions. Darius moved toward me, his face red. Kenya, you bitch. You scheming little. That's enough. Mr. Chen stepped between us. I have letters here. Rose wrote one for each of you. Perhaps you'd like to hear what she had to say. The silence that fell was suffocating. Richard pulled Mom back down to her seat. Marcus's jaw clenched so tight I could hear his teeth grinding from across the room. In the corner, Grandma's best friend Miss Loretta sat quietly, tears streaming down her weathered face, nodding slowly. Yes, Marcus finally said. Read them. Because Mama couldn't have been thinking straight. She had stage 4 cancer, I whispered, but her mind was perfect until the end. I was there. Where were you? Kenya visited daily the last 2 months. Miss Loretta spoke up, her voice cracking. She bathed Rose, fed her, held her hand when the pain got bad. Where were the rest of you? Mr. Chen pulled out cream-colored envelopes, each one addressed in Grandma's distinctive handwriting. To my son Marcus. He began reading. You've always been smart with money. Too smart. When your father died, I gave you $10,000 to start your business. You never paid it back, said it was family helping family. But when Kenya needed $800 for car repairs, you told her to figure it out herself. Family, you said, can't always be a crutch. Marcus's face went gray. Rochelle's hand dropped from his shoulder. To Rochelle, my sister-in-law. You borrowed $23,000 over the years. Each time you promised to repay it. Each time you forgot. But you remembered to criticize Kenya's clothes at every family function. Aunt Rochelle's mouth opened and closed like a fish. To my grandson Darius. I paid for your associate's degree, $17,000. You dropped out after 1 year to sell cars. When Kenya made Dean's List, you called her efforts cute. To my granddaughter Tiana. I gave you $15,000 for your startup business that became a shopping spree. You posted the bags on Instagram but never thanked me in person. Tiana's designer sunglasses couldn't hide her tears now. Tears of anger, not shame. To my daughter Diane. Mr. Chen's voice softened. You married well the second time. I'm happy for you. But when Kenya called you crying because she couldn't afford both rent and textbooks, you told her poor choices have consequences. I paid her rent that month. She never knew it came from me. My vision blurred. The room spun. Mom's face had gone white as her handkerchief. Kenya visited me 93 times in the last year of my life. The rest of you combined? 11 visits. Kenya never asked me for money. Not once. She asked for recipes, stories, time. She poisoned Nana against us. Tiana's voice cracked with desperation. I felt something inside me snap, not break but transform. 3 years of mockery, of condescension, of being the family embarrassment crystallized into perfect clarity. I stepped forward, my voice steady for the first time in my life around these people. Poisoned her? I held her hand while she vomited from chemo. I cleaned her when she was too weak to make it to the bathroom. I slept on her floor because she was scared to die alone at night. My voice rose. Where were you, Tiana? Oh right. In Turks and Caicos posting thirst traps with #blessed. You have no right, Marcus started. I have every right. Mr. Chen, please continue. I want them to hear all of it. Mr. Chen nodded, pulling out another document. Rose also left specific instructions about the house contents. Kenya, she wanted you to know. The photo albums are yours. The recipe books with her handwritten notes. Her wedding ring from Samuel. The quilt her mother made. Everything she knew you'd cherish, not sell. We wouldn't sell, Mom began. You sold her kitchen table at a yard sale. I interrupted, my voice like ice. The one Grandpa Samuel made by hand. I saw it on OfferUp for $50 while she was still alive. She cried for an hour. Mom's face crumbled. That was an accident. It was disrespect. All of this is. I turned to face them all, these people who'd made me feel small my entire life. Grandma Rose knew exactly what she was doing. She built something from nothing, survived things you can't imagine, and she saw through every single one of you. Kenya, Darius approached, his tone shifting to false sweetness. Look, we're family. Let's talk about this reasonably. Now we're family? Mr. Chin raised his hand for silence. There's more. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling exposed despite everyone's eyes now looking at the lawyer instead of me. Rose established a trust with specific conditions, Mr. Chin explained, adjusting his glasses. Kenya, you'll receive a monthly stipend of $5,000 immediately for living expenses and school. The bulk of the estate transfers fully when you complete your nursing degree. $5,000 a month. I made 1,300 working 60-hour weeks. My hands cracked from hospital disinfectant, my back aching from lifting patients. The number seemed impossible. If you don't complete the degree, Mr. Chin continued, the money goes to charity, the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute and the National Nurses United Scholarship Fund. Rose wanted to ensure you'd finish what you started. She always did know how to manipulate, Rochelle started. She knew Kenya would succeed, Miss Loretta interrupted, standing slowly, her arthritis making her movements careful. Rose told me 3 months ago, Loretta, that girl's got steel in her spine. She just don't know it yet. This money gonna show her. I remembered that day. Grandma had been having a good day, strong enough to sit in her garden. We'd planted marigolds, her favorites, and she'd held my hand. Promise me you'll finish school, baby girl. No matter what. I promise, Nana. She'd smiled. I know you will. You're a Washington woman. We don't quit. This is bullshit. Darius slammed his hand on a table. We're contesting this. Getting a lawyer. I am a lawyer, Mr. Chin said calmly. And I've practiced estate law for 23 years. This will is ironclad. I made sure of it because Rose knew you'd try exactly this. Marcus pulled out his phone. We'll see about that. Standing there watching my family unravel, I remembered the day I understood how different we were. I was 19, home from my first semester at Georgia State. I'd gotten a 3.7 GPA while working 30 hours a week at Target, and I'd burst into Mom's house excited to share. She'd been hosting her book club, 6 women in expensive athleisure drinking wine that cost more than my grocery budget. Kenya, we're busy, she'd said without looking up. Mom, I made Dean's list. That's nice, honey. We'll talk later. Tiana had been there, fresh from some sales conference. Dean's list? Girl, that's so cute. I made $43,000 in commission this quarter. The women had laughed politely. I'd stood there, my printed transcript crumpling in my sweaty hand, feeling stupid for thinking academic achievement mattered in a family that measured worth in dollar signs and Instagram followers. I'd driven to Grandma's house, not calling first, just needing somewhere to exist. She'd been in her kitchen testing a new cobbler recipe. One look at my face and she'd pulled me into a hug that smelled like butter and cinnamon. They didn't care, I'd sobbed into her shoulder. I care, baby girl. Tell me everything. She'd sat me down, served me warm cobbler with vanilla ice cream, and listened to every detail of every class, every triumph, every challenge. When I'd finished, she'd held both my hands. Kenya, you listening? Some people measure life in things they can buy. But the stuff that matters, kindness, dedication, growth, that can't fit in a shopping bag. You're building something they'll never understand. But I understand. And I'm so damn proud. She'd framed my transcript. It hung in her hallway until the day she died, right next to her marriage certificate and her business license. My 3 greatest accomplishments, she'd say. Love, legacy, and Kenya. I want my share. Tiana's voice reached a pitch that could shatter glass. She lunged toward me and suddenly Richard was between us, his businessman composure cracking. Everybody needs to calm down. Don't you dare tell me to calm down. Tiana whirled on him. Kenya doesn't deserve this. She's nobody. A nobody with a nothing job living in a roach motel. I earned Grandma's love, I said quietly, but the room heard me. That's what you can't stand. Not the money, you all have money. You can't stand that the one person whose opinion mattered chose me. Mom stood, her face streaked with mascara now, her perfect facade demolished. You turned her against us. Years of whispering poison. I told her about my classes. My voice finally broke free, loud and clear and furious. I told her about patients at the hospital, about the old man in 4B who reminded me of Grandpa Samuel. I told her about my classmate Jasmine whose mom has lupus, and we stayed up late studying together. I told her about life, Mom. Real life. Not investment portfolios and vacation homes. You were always so self-righteous, Darius spat. Acting like you're better than us because you're poor. I never chose to be poor. You all just chose to be cruel about it. The words hung in the air. Marcus's phone clattered to the floor. Rochelle's hand covered her mouth. In the corner, several of Grandma's church friends nodded slowly, their knowing looks confirming what I'd finally said out loud. Pastor Williams stood from where he'd been sitting silently. I think, he said gently, y'all need to hear the rest. Rose recorded something. Mr. Chin, if you would. A video. My heart hammered. What else had Grandma planned? Mr. Chin pulled out a tablet and suddenly Grandma's face filled the screen. She looked thin, her head wrap bright purple, sitting in her favorite armchair with the afternoon light streaming through her lace curtains. The timestamp read February 14, 2024, 3 weeks before she died. If you're watching this, I'm gone, Grandma's voice crackled through the speaker, but her eyes were sharp as ever. And I imagine some of you are mad as hell. Good. Maybe anger will make you finally listen. Marcus made a sound like a wounded animal. I came from nothing. Watched my mama clean white folks' houses until her knees gave out. Watched my daddy get called boy by men half his age. Samuel and I built Rose's kitchen with $400 and a prayer. We survived when banks wouldn't loan to us, when suppliers wouldn't sell to us, when customers wouldn't eat our food because of the color of our skin. She paused, her hand trembling slightly as she adjusted her glasses. I gave each of you opportunities one never had. College funds, down payments, business loans. And you know what? Most of you squandered it. Worse, you looked down on Kenya for working hard, for struggling, for earning everything she's got. Tears streamed down my face. The room had gone cemetery silent. Kenya reminds me of myself at her age. Hungry. Determined. Too proud to beg but not too proud to work. She visited me 93 times this past year. She never asked for a penny. She asked for my peach cobbler recipe, and we spent 4 hours getting it right because she wanted to remember me through my food. Grandma leaned forward, her gaze seeming to pierce through the screen. That's love. Not the Christmas cards. Not the obligatory phone calls. The showing up on regular days. Kenya showed up. To those of you mad about my decision, good. Let that anger teach you something. Real wealth isn't money. It's knowing someone will hold your hand when you're dying. Kenya held mine. The video ended. The silence lasted 10 heartbeats before Rochelle shattered it. This is manipulative. She recorded that when she was dying, probably on medications. She was completely lucid. Mr. Chin interrupted, his patience clearly exhausted. I was there when she recorded it. She did 3 takes because she wanted the words exactly right. Rose Washington knew precisely what she was doing. I found my voice stronger now. You want to contest the will? Fine. Drag this through court for years. But I'll be finishing my nursing degree either way. With or without the money, I'm becoming exactly who Grandma knew I could be. Kenya. Mom's voice cracked. She stood, mascara painting her cheeks, her hands shaking. Baby, please. We can work this out. Family shouldn't. Don't. The word came out sharp. Don't call me baby. Don't talk about family. You had 26 years to treat me like family. You chose not to. We made mistakes. Marcus tried, his businessman negotiation voice emerging. But we can fix this. Maybe a settlement, divide the estate fairly. Fairly. I laughed and it sounded like breaking glass. Fair would have been helping me when I was eating ramen for dinner so I could afford textbooks. Fair would have been one of you offering me a place to stay when my apartment flooded last year. Fair would have been showing up, just once, when I called crying because a patient died in my arms and I didn't think I was strong enough for this career. Miss Loretta stood, her voice carrying decades of friendship with Grandma. Rose knew what she was doing. She told me, Loretta, I'm not dividing my legacy among people who'll just waste it. I'm investing it in the one person who'll honor it. Pastor Williams added quietly, your grandmother prayed about this decision for months. She didn't make it lightly or out of spite. She made it out of love. Tiana's voice came out small now, defeated. So that's it? We get nothing. You got plenty, I said. You just spent it. 3 months later I stood in Grandma's kitchen, my kitchen now. The morning light hit the counters where she'd taught me to make her famous peach cobbler, the secret ratio of sugar and cinnamon that made it sing. I'd kept everything exactly as she'd left it. The strawberry print curtains, the cookie jar shaped like a hen, the wall of photos documenting our Wednesday evenings together. My nursing school acceptance letter sat on the table. Johns Hopkins full ride thanks to the trust fund that also paid off my debts and bought me a reliable car. I'd start in the fall, continuing what Grandma's money made possible, becoming the nurse I'd always dreamed of being. The family had contested the will, of course. It lasted 6 weeks before their lawyer told them what Mr. Chin already had. They didn't have a case. Marcus stopped returning my calls after week 2. Mom sent one text, I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. But Miss Loretta visited every Sunday. Pastor Williams stopped by to check on me. Jasmine, my study partner, helped me start cleaning out the basement, where we'd found boxes of Grandma's old catering menus and business records. Kenya, you should do something with these, she'd said. This is history. I was thinking about it. Maybe a cookbook. Maybe scholarships for nursing students from struggling families. Maybe both. The trust gave me choices I'd never imagined. Standing in that kitchen, I felt Grandma's presence like sunlight, warm, steady, real. She'd given me more than money. She'd given me validation, armor, wings. My phone buzzed. Jasmine, Dean's List again? Girl, Nana Rose is proud wherever she is. I smiled, pressing my hand against the counter where Grandma's hands had worked for decades. Yeah, I whispered to the empty kitchen. She knows. Outside, marigolds, Grandma's favorites, bloomed in the garden I'd planted, that I was blooming too. Finally seen. Finally valued. Finally free. The family that laughed at me during her memorial service got nothing. But I got everything that mattered. Her love, her legacy, and the unshakable knowledge that I was worthy of both. Some inheritances can't be measured in dollars. But knowing that, that's priceless.